Ladies and gentlemen, I've got very exciting news, and I'm going to be sharing it with you in this video. I'm recording this in February of 2025, and not too long ago, it was announced that chess would be included in the 2025 edition of the Esports World Cup. Some of you know what esports are, others of you might not. Esports are electronic sports, and generally what that means is two teams play in a 5-on-5, 6-on-6 team format in different video games. Like, if you think of a popular video game, it probably participates in esports competitions. This is a massive industry with enormous sponsorship, and they sell out arenas all across the world. Think League of Legends, for example. Well, chess has been added. And not only chess has been added, major teams are signing top players, starting with Magnus Carlsen. I'm going to give you a little brief of that, and then I'm going to show you some games that were played yesterday in the road to the 2025 Esports World Cup Chess Edition. So let's kick things off with the major news. Magnus Carlsen signed with Team Liquid. That's huge. I don't know a huge amount about esports, but Team Liquid is one of the OG teams that I've ever known. Magnus signed with them, and so did Fabiano Caruana. Like, just as a little dessert, you know, after a main course, they signed Magnus and they signed Fabiano Caruana, which is huge. And I think Magnus even signed some, like, I don't know if it's just for this one. I don't know if it's for future ones, but it's a really, really big deal. That's awesome. And then obviously Hans Niemann tweeted, whoever Team Liquid's biggest competitor is, I'm ready to sign for the Esports World Cup, which is very, very funny. And maybe he will get signed as well. Then Hikaru Nakamura signed with the Falcons team, which is, I think, the local Saudi team, because the Esports World Cup will be in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia in July, August this year. So Hikaru signs with the Falcons. Nepomniachtchi signs with Aurora. And then we get, Arjun Erigaisi signing. We have Ding Liren and Wei Yi. They actually signed for two different Chinese esports teams, which is awesome. MVL signed with the team. And then Navi, I think it's Ukrainian team. They signed 3 players. So this is a massive, massive deal, and the players will be competing for $1.5 million. It's somewhere in this pool, and here is the format. Essentially, the way it works is the Champions Chess Tour will have 2 events, one in February, this one, and in May, and the top 12 players will make it, and there will be a last chance qualifier in Riyadh, I think, which is pretty crazy. So right before it actually starts in Riyadh, people can go there and try to qualify at the last minute, which is pretty wild. Now, the purpose of this video is to show you what happened yesterday. This is basically episode 1. This is basically episode 1 of the entire thing. The first event, the Chessable Masters started, well, we're going to analyze games from the event because we already have a semi-final format set. And it features some people you might recognize. So sit back, relax. I'm going to be showing you games by Hikaru. I'm going to be showing you games by Magnus. And as this event wraps up, I will show you games by other players and finishers as well. So Magnus Carlsen is playing Andreikin. This is Andrei Yesipenko. And he opens with d4, and he plays a Jobava London, with the bishop going to the f4 square, and the knight going to c3. And this is a London system with various tricks like knight to b5, which obviously, Yesipenko does not fall for. This is one of the ways to play. This is actually the way I recommend to play. And if you study on Chessly, my educational platform, we recently added a course for black on how to deal with sidelines, like the Jobava London. So should be under the new category, but you can check that out, and we're constantly adding courses. So this is a very nice little antidote. But Magnus plays knight f3, he plays knight e5, and this game, as you watch this game, I want you to think vintage Magnus. All right? That's what you got to think of, those 2 words. Bishop goes to d7, and now Magnus plays a move that is very hard to explain to a beginner, intermediate, or even an advanced player. Magnus here plays knight e2, undevelops the knight, blocks his queen, blocks his bishop. The point is, he's playing for structure, and it's actually the best move. He wants to play pawn to c3 because in this type of pawn structure, which is kind of like a reverse, it's like a reverse Carlsbad, where black has a minority attack with 3 pawns versus 4, I think that's what it's called. You know, white likes to play this move c3, and that's exactly what happens. And early on, it was Magnus almost trapping the knight. The knight obviously was able to get away. And I just want to show you here the way Magnus plays the position. Moves the queen up 1 square, protecting the b2 pawn. Moves the rook over. It's a normal move, centralizing the rook. Then he slides the bishop forward 1 square, which prepares castles. Yeshipenko plays a normal-looking move. He plays, you know, f6, trying to make a pawn break in the center of the board. Oh, and by the way, the format of the Esports World Cup is 10 minutes each with no bonus time. No bonus time. So flagging is encouraged. Beating each other on the clock is encouraged. That's never been the format, and that's a very unique format. These players are used to having a bonus time per move. Not anymore. Now they have to trust their instincts and play fast. And in this game, it was Magnus positioning his pieces 1 square at a time, all on the right squares. And I want to draw your attention to a very important moment right here. So white is slightly better here. Why is white slightly better? Material is equal. Queen, 2 rooks, and even the bishops are on the same color. 6 pawns each. But structurally speaking, black has 2-2-2 and white has 3-3. You ever play that game Chopsticks? And then you could like do this. And do kids play that nowadays, or what do kids do now? I don't even know. They say skibbity or whatever. I mean, this was the stuff back in the day in school. Anyway, it kind of like, you know, it's kind of like that. And white's structure is healthier because if he's able to put his pawns like this, it's going to be very tough for black to move. And then, you know, Magnus will slowly apply pressure. This is what's called a backwards pawn. It's a pawn that can't quite move forward because its pawns abandoned it, and it would be weakening, you know, other things. So Magnus goes g3, and his idea is to play pawn to f4. And Yeshipenko feeling the pressure. First of all, he's down 2 minutes on the clock. Second of all, he's about to be, you know, in a long bind. He tries to sacrifice a pawn for activity. But now you're just down a pawn, and I'm threatening to trade with you. Magnus trading the queens. And now watch this methodical technique. All right, white is still better. Why is white better? Because black has an isolated pawn, and white controls the only open file on the board. And you centralize the rook, and now watch this. King f2 and king e3. This is master level endgame technique. The king walking to the middle, he's going to participate. If black plays e4, you can take it. You can also play f4. It's actually also completely fine. And bishop goes to b3, and just surgical. The king in the center now. Everything in white's position well protected. At some point, you're going to zip the rook over somewhere. You're going to get a trade. And just, you know, you don't want to rush in this position. But look at the restriction. Black having so many split pawn weaknesses. And at some point, you will come back and you will simply win everything. Look at this. I mean, everything is just infiltrating. Now we pick up the pawn. And Yeshipenko resigns because rook f3 is met with rook e7 and total domination. The crazy thing about this position is you can actually just win king and pawn style because you just have a more advanced king, and then you're going to come over here and do this. I mean, the way Magnus beats 2700 level grandmasters is a sight to behold. Now I would like to show you a game. So the previous game was Vintage Magnus. This game was 2 guys that took 10 shots at a bar and got into a fight. All right, that's what I would like you to think about when you think about this game. You just saw a classy middle game to end game conversion from the best end game player of the modern generation and maybe ever. And now, you know, Hikaru versus Grischuk, right? Grischuk, multiple-time World Blitz champion, a little bit on the older side now as far as chess is concerned, but Hikaru plays a Nimso Larsen, right? But I gotta tell you, early on, Alexander Grischuk got exactly what you want. And what he has here is he has more space. He just has more space, which clamps the white position, doesn't let white make any easy moves. What does Hikaru do? Hikaru tries to, you know, grab a bishop. Grischuk just gives it to him because it's not like white's dark squared bishop is making any sort of impression. Grischuk completely restricting. And yeah, the engine is just loving the position for, for black. It just thinks that black has a nearly dominant, you know, positional advantage. Queen can come back to c7 and maybe go to a5. That would have been a nice technique here because you kind of want white to start pushing these pawns to create more weaknesses. But the thing is, in this format, again, like in the previous game, 6 minutes to 4 is a big deal. And what ultimately happens in this one is, you know, Grischuk keeps maneuvering, keeps getting, you know, somewhere, but now is down to 244. Hikaru, meanwhile, is just kind of zipping his pieces around, right? And so is Grischuk. And now Hikaru going for a little bit of counterplay, the engine hating it, but practically speaking, black only has sort of 2 minutes to react, right? And Hikaru sacrifices a bishop. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw the conclusion of this game. I was flabbergasted. Watch. So Grischuk, of course, takes, because he's up a piece now, right? Now, black plays queen d8 here. White is completely lost. But it's not so simple. Because Hikaru wants to play knight g5, and then he wants to play queen h7, and then I'm not really sure what he wants to do, but he probably wants to promote this pawn, like queen h7, queen h8, trade the queen, h6, h7, h8. It's not an easy position by any practical stretch, and black doesn't know that it's -3. The computer wants to defend here by playing knight c3, attacking the bishop, and then it wants to play knight d7 and queen f8. You can also just play knight d7 and defend like this. Grischuk goes here. So he plays perfectly. Hikaru moves, and now knight d7, which is unbelievable. Like, the fact that Grischuk even spots all of this with 1 minute on the clock shows you why he's a 3-time World Blitz champion. And now queen f8, absolutely perfect defending. And black is just winning. Hikaru plays queen f4. Grischuk plays queen g7, protecting his king. 1 minute to 1:43. Remember, no bonus time. Knight takes d4. Maybe you play knight d5 here. Let's see what you do. Okay, queen e5. I mean, yeah, what could be more clinical? You give a check here. Hikaru jumping the knight to the other side of the board. Now, what's funny about this position is there is queen c5 check, pawn to d4, and you just pick up a knight. I mean, it looks like Hikaru has just blundered a second piece. But not only has he not blundered a second piece, this is at least a draw, if not winning for white. Can you believe it? 2 pieces down. Because after the king moves, h6 is mate. Black is up 2 pieces, but cannot stop mate. How is that even possible? So Grischuk goes here, and it's a draw if Hikaru wants it. But he goes here. Pawn to h6. And he is threatening queen g7 and h7. He's threatening h7, h8, and queen g7, h7. But he's threatening something else. And Grischuk misses it. This is now checkmate. A move ago, it was not, because the pawn was here. This is mate. Hikaru beats Alexander Grischuk down 2 knights. Welcome to the Esports World Cup. I mean, this is... And I gotta tell you, this defensive effort from Hikaru was Herculean. This shows you that you don't have to play passive defense. Knight c6 to threaten this and this. I don't know if Hikaru blundered queen c5 and got lucky, because if he got lucky, the chess gods are watching his games. If he set that up, that kind of setup with the queen and the pawn, that's genius. I mean, I don't even know what one could possibly say. That is like one of the most brilliant defensive saves I've ever seen. Meanwhile, Magnus was doing his thing against Yesipenko. All right. I told you in this video I would be covering, multiple games. Magnus playing one of the most true and tried and reliable systems in the Nimso Indian. This is the b6, bishop b7, and bishop b4. By the way, on Chessly, I have a Dutch defense, which goes for a very similar setup. It goes for a setup that looks like this, with a pawn on b6. And you will notice it's kind of got a, similar thing to the game that was, to this position, right? Black pawn on f5. This position is completely equal. This position is a little bit less equal because the pawn is advanced, but it's a very nice position for black, practically speaking. Now, yeah, Magnus gets this against Yesipenko, right? Plays c5. The knight jumps out because now the dark squared bishop could be trapped. So you take, and then you take on f3, and then you play knight c6, and you start putting a little bit of pressure on Yesipenko's center. Nice idea here, e5. If pawn takes, knight takes, you break up the position. It very well could be taking is completely fine. Pushing is also completely fine. This is not completely fine, because now Magnus can take in the center on d4, and he can move the bishop back. Yesipenko gets a little bit of queenside space, and Yesipenko launches a belligerent attack. Now, again, Magnus wins games from positions of strength, but also Magnus wins games from positions of trash. The thing about guys like Magnus and Hikaru, to beat them, you got to beat them 5 times in one game. You also might have to beat them with a physical object so that their energy kind of gasses out. Yesipenko in this game gets a very nice position. He plays energetically, he plays very ambitiously, and, you know, even though he's down 2 pawns, he is threatening a knockout. He's threatening to take this pawn and play bishop c7. He also is just straight up threatening to play bishop c7 because there are lines where you can play queen f7 and queen g8 mate. So Magnus now has to find d5, sacrificing a pawn for absolutely no good reason, except there is a good reason. The good reason is now you can defend that. I mean, d5 found is clutch. I mean, this is clutch behavior from a clutch player. And, you know, he's on Team Liquid, so he's repping. Knight takes c5, right? Now he gets rid of the knight, and now he drops this back. He's losing. But the knockout is a little bit tricky. He's baiting his opponent to play bishop takes f7, king takes f7, bishop d6, and maybe here he calculated like queen f5, rook e7, king g6, and a position that looks like this, where suddenly black has a pawn 3 squares away from queening. Like this is the stuff nightmares are made out of. You know, you start trying to defend your king, suddenly Magnus has taken a pawn back, you try to take a pawn back, here comes Magnus's king again. It was winning, but you had to find a very precise move after bishop f7, bishop d6. Yasipenko doesn't, and burns all his time. He burns nearly half his clock time, or a third of it, on this move. Bishop goes back. Magnus taking on c5. Again, completely winning, but you have to play a backwards bishop move, and then it's not really clear even what the idea is. Instead, Yasipenko goes here, and now Magnus plays a ghost move. What I mean is he plays a move that doesn't look like it's real. He plays king f8. You can take this pawn, and I mean, it looks like you're just there, like the game is over, and that's exactly what happens. Nope. Not only are you not there, there is no mate. I'm threatening a counterattack. I'm not really threatening to take the bishop because queen h8 is mate if I take. But I am threatening to just get counterplay. I have a lot of threats myself. Somehow, you stumble into a position against Magnus Carlsen where you are completely winning. But it's not so simple. And now you're not even winning. You're almost worse. Rook c3 is a counterattack. Bishop e6 is a beautiful move, I have to say. Yasipenko gathering his nerves, finding a very nice idea, trying to get Magnus to take, so his knight will get captured. Magnus just takes it, because he's like, I don't believe you. And he plays queen f7, offering a trade. Queen e4. Yasipenko is better again. Now we're in a scramble. 2 minutes each. How clutch are you? Can you hold your nerves? Queen d4 is the wrong approach. You have to go back and come forward. I mean, that is tough. He takes a free pawn, but Magnus plays queen f5 and takes on g5, and now is not only in an equal position. Yasipenko played 33 moves of chess in this game with an equal or better position. 33 moves. And with 1:30 on the clock, he comes here, takes a pawn, attacks the knight, loses the game. Against Magnus Carlsen, you could play 33 good moves, 1 bad move, and you lose. Why? Rook takes g3. Yasipenko resigns because his king is under a brutal attack now, and if he takes, geometrically, he's going to lose this rook. Wherever you put the king, I give a check, and then I pick the rook up. Check, here, queen e6, and Magnus will probably beat you with an extra knight and an extra pawn. Advance, 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 trade the queen, and win the game. Get a queen trade. Unbelievable. Like, they win positions from good and from bad. Now, meanwhile, while Magnus was doing his best Magnus impression, Hikaru was also doing his best Magnus impression. Hikaru played Yu Yangyi, who is representing Aurora. Very cool that all these top teams are signing all these top players. Why are they signing all these top players? Because these top players are going to probably they're going to run really deep in the Esports World Cup, and they will win money. And ultimately, you know, esports have insane sponsorship. Like, they have so many top 100, top 200 companies sponsoring them. They have different categories, like they have energy drinks, they have banks, they have financial platforms, they like whatever. And it's very cool because chess has not had that. Think about how much chess has grown over the last 4 or 5 years. We don't see the candidates or the world championships being, you know, sponsored by as many companies. The last world championship in chess had Google as a sponsor, but I'm not even sure the extent of that sponsorship. Like, it's not really clear to me what was going on there. Compared to esports, you know, it's awesome that these top players are going to have these opportunities. Now, is the game getting faster and therefore more blunder-filled? Absolutely. Like, if you're a chess purist, you shouldn't watch. You know, because yeah, it messes with the overall quality and integrity of the game. But is it giving massive career opportunities to people? Yeah, it is. Now, like I said, Hikaru was doing a really good Magnus impression, okay? Watch as Hikaru plays this position. So it's a Nimso Larsen, it's b3, right? Plays bishop b2. Kind of funny little maneuver here. He tries to go after the bishop. Jan doesn't give it to him, then the knight comes back. Because now the bishop sort of went to this passive square. None of that is all that important. What is important is this position. So this is called IQP. It's not a type of car. Oh, wow. Is he driving the IQP 400? I didn't even know that car came out yet. IQP is isolated queen's pawn. It's when the neighboring pawns are gone. They were traded, and this pawn stands here. What does white want? Peace trades. White wants to trade pieces the right way. You don't want to trade in a way that's going to help your opponent bolster the center. Less pieces your opponent has, the harder it's going to be to defend this pawn. And white wants to blockade the pawn and put pressure on it in the long run. What does black want? Black wants to deliver mate. Oftentimes, because the empty space around the pawn helps with piece mobility, you're able to generate attacks a little bit faster. Now let's see Hikaru do his best Magnus impression. Notice how it's 0.1, but if this trade were to happen, it's immediately 0.3, 0.4, right? Okay, it's 0.27. I don't know why it's... Okay, there we go. It's not good. And then if you trade like this, you know, now it's 0.4. You know? And then if you trade some more pieces, it's going to get even higher. Well, watch. Okay, rook c1, queen c2. Slow play. Now Hikaru takes. He takes now because if the pawn takes this, right? So the pawn is staying isolated. Okay? Now what black should have done here is gone for an attack, right? Because that's that's what an isolated pawn position is good for. Nepo is going over here, and that's not going to help his cause because more pieces are going to get traded, right? Now, Nepo doesn't like Hikaru's bishop, plays this move. Overall, not a bad move. Black's queen is very active, but isolated pawn benefiting, you know, the trading player. Bishop f3. Everything white is doing is how you're supposed to play this position. g6, knight e2 back, right? Blockade, attack. Blockade, attack. Now, what's funny is that if Nepo had played a move like rook c5 in this position, the game would have kept going. I mean, it would have taken a little bit of time. Like, for instance, you know, we might get to a position like this. You've traded all the pieces, but black's pawn has survived. Instead, Nepo goes here. And Hikaru attacks this pawn on a5, forces this pawn forward, and calls the bluff. Takes. The pawn has fallen. Still, black has a lot of empty space around. But now white is just up a pawn. Hikaru playing a beautiful positional game, still relying on trades to convert the position. Rook a1 is really nasty, by the way. a3 ideas, knight c6 ideas, and he breaks apart the position. And this game was played as if Magnus was white. And that's not, you know, that's not a knock on Hikaru. Like this was an absolutely perfect positional game. Now the king comes, the rook comes, you push the pawn, and you win the game. There is absolutely nothing black can do at a high level. At an amateur level, there's plenty of things that black can... Look at this. It's completely effortless. Every pawn on a dark square on the right side of the board, check. Rook b6 threatening a trade, c6. You threaten rook b7, check. You threaten to take the pawn and bring in the king. Black resides. I think Hikaru played this game at like 97% accuracy. It was on, yeah, 96.5. I mean, it's like he did not make a single mistake. It's crazy. Now, meanwhile, Magnus got to the semifinals against Yu Yangyi, and you know, he was doing typical Magnus stuff. He was he was in great shape. This time he played a regular London. Now, here he played one of my favorite Londons. I love this system. This is actually in my London course on Chessly. F3. And then G4. And then H4. There are these systems with black where black accidentally stumbles into a huge pawn counterattack, which is completely fine for white to play, because there's no way to exploit it. You know, black can't really, like, use the pawns particularly well. Yu Yangyi plays H5. And this is, again, an instructive game, because here he plays queen takes D3. And in a shocking turn of events, like, normally here my opponents are playing moves like G6, but you cannot do that because queen B5 is a double attack. So normally what people do is they play something like knight B6, and then if G6, there is F6 and some quick counterplay. Yu Yangyi plays this, and now this move is much more powerful. And Magnus immediately getting to the heart of the black position and ripping it open. Yu Yangyi wants to open the position. Magnus is like, oh, you want to open the position? Okay, let's really open the position. Come on, let's do it. Knight b6, knight c3. Oh, sorry, c takes d5. Knight c3 comes on the next move, like this. You want to take my queen? I'm going to double my own pawns, play toward the center. This pawn is going to disconnect these pieces. That pawn is like a kidney stone, which I suppose is a benefit for white, but I don't think there's any benefits to a kidney stone, except maybe for the stone itself. I don't know. Strange analogy. Knight c6. Now we go bishop c7, because we'd like to put our knight here and put more pressure on the black position, and maybe take the knight on b6 in very specific moments. Knight b4. Knight f4. Wait, sorry, what? Is this a fork? Yes, it is. It is a fork. Bro is just straight up giving him this. And the idea, I think, by white is to take this pawn. It's not even to go here. And then if black plays king d7, it's to play d5. Magnus is just playing to meme on his opponent. Like, this is one of the worst positions like you could find yourself in. I mean, every single piece is stuck. It looks like black should have something. He can't make a move. He plays a move like rook e8 trying to take. I get rid of this. I take this. You are completely dominated. If you try to sacrifice, that's, you know, admirable. Yeah, maybe that's the way. But, you know, Yu Yangyi goes here. And ultimately, Magnus plays king e2. And I love the way he converts this position. He just totally restricts black. Now watch this. Knight a4. Right? Rook c1 is incoming. Or that rook, because now the bishop blocked the rook. Yu Yangyi tries to get rid of his weakness here by playing c3. Unfortunately, that stumbles directly into the counterpunch b4, winning on the spot. There is no en passant here. There is no en passant, because the pawn has to be side by side. Could be a little confusing for amateurs, but if this was here, yeah, the pawn would take. Can't take. You deflect the bishop away from the defense of this. Yu Yangyi goes here. We take. We take. Rook c7 is on the way. Now, if you look at this position, white is only up a pawn. It feels like, actually, if you look at this position, it's equal pawns. It feels like white is up 5 pawns because black is so restricted. But rook c7 is coming, and you will lose everything. Actually, Magnus plays e5 to start to not even allow the king out of the position. Now he wants to play rook c7, and rook c8 is checkmate. It's a really nice move. And Yu Yangyi resigns because, well, it's mate. Rook c7 and rook c7 mate. So black would have only been able to protect it by moving the rook back to a8, but yeah, here you would lose. This is over. Maybe that wasn't even the best move, but yeah, rook c7 and just GG. Yeah, it's kind of crazy how he gets it done, like playing openings like this, right? And also in the first game, just playing a solid maneuvering game. And he won another one. And we will end like this. I will end by showing you this. He played a Sicilian defense. He went into a Rossolimo. This is something that Magnus had to face all the time in his World Championship campaign against Fabiano Caruana. G6 is the main line. Yu Yangyi taking, D takes, which is the main move. Queen c7 and e5. This is a very unique structure because black doesn't allow white to get very quick play. I am very, very, very bad at this pawn structure with black. Like, whenever I play it, white puts a knight here, advances his a-pawn, and just puts pressure on me for the entire game. So it's kind of nice to watch how Magnus does it. Like, again, when I play people, they all put a knight on c4, which is exactly what happens here. And now Magnus tries to get rid of it and does all of this, right? Does all of this, and this is kind of the position. And now it's like two sides are clashing a little bit. But this is, yeah, this is, by the way, this can be taken already, but there's some tactics. So maybe that wasn't the best approach. But, you know, if you ever play b5, it just kind of, it feels like it opens up the position for white. But this is the position, right? The sides are clashing. Yu Yangyi going to grab the bishop, and it's quite obvious that he wants to play pawn to f4 also. So h6, push the bishop back. The knight, sorry. What? No, there's f4. Rook b1. Rook e8. b5 was the computer stop choice, which is a tough move for me to understand. Rook e8. Bishop c3, b6. Now, I lose this position all the time because I don't know where my pieces go. I feel very passive. I feel like white has a very, very nice thing going on. Let's see how Magnus handles it. He goes for counterplay with f5. White takes, black takes. White plays queen h5, right? Again, very active, every piece playing, every piece participating. Pawn to f4 is always there. Okay, Yu Yangyi plays rook e1, f4 was also there. Now the rook goes back. He's kind of admitting that that was the wrong plan, but still white is better. Queen g6. If you're wondering why the pawn can't be taken, knight d5, discovered attack on the queen, and then I would take the bishop. Rook e6. I mean, position looks completely terrible for black. Like, I don't even know what you're supposed to do here. Magnus also down nearly 3 minutes. Let's not forget. But as I told you in the beginning of the video, Magnus is able to win games that are great, and he's able to win positions, rather, that are great, and positions that are garbage. I mean, he's much worse in this game, and he goes for complications. Knight takes g7. He's not in a position to be calling the shots at all. He's down 3 minutes to 5. But when you are pressuring Magnus like this, something awakens, right? He's trading, but still, I mean, black's structure is horrendous. He has no forward pawn play. Not a single thing. So what does he do here? Dog, he plays king f7. Like, if you have the nervous system and the gall to play king f7 in a position like this, of course you are the best player in the world. I cannot call you the world champion. I guess I can call you the world blitz champion, but not world champion, because that's Gukesh. But you are the best player in the world as far as I'm concerned. I mean, and now it's like cat and mouse. He's just playing defense. Yu Yangyi, come get me. Come beat me. Let's trade the rooks. Yu Yangyi's like, nope. Yu Yangyi's like, I gotta win. Queen e2, rook e7. Yo, look at this taunting. Like, this is rook e8, rook b8, rook b7, rook e7. I mean, this is rope-a-dope. This is like, come beat me. Let's go. You have a better position. Queen f6, knight into d5. That's a bold move. You take, you lose the rook. But what if I don't take? Now you got to go back. But now you blundered an important pawn. You blundered an important pawn and your rook is hanging. Now it looks like you have counterplay, but I'm getting the queens off the... Oh my god, he's going to save the game. It still looks like white is dominating. Like if Magnus was playing white here, I'd be like, oh, he's going to find a way. But now immediately comes b5. Now these pawns get traded. Now the position has been cut in half. Only white's pieces are on the left side of the board. So Magnus has a lot less to worry about, and he actually has passed pawns. And now you get into a time scramble endgame with the best endgame player of all time. He's down a pawn. Not only was he down a pawn, like 20 moves ago, dude was down 3 minutes in this game. Well, basically 3 minutes. Now you fast forward to like move 47. He's down a pawn in an endgame. And yet, because you have to win the game, you stumble into a position where black is winning. How did this happen? How is this possible? Knight d4, you cannot take the pawn because of a fork. Now I get a green light to c2, and then I get a green light to b1. And as fate would have it, pawn to e3 was not necessary, but whatever. Pawn takes, rook b2 is a really nasty trick with pawn here. Knight e2 is a really nasty trick, attacking the rook and promoting. And as fate would have it, not only does Magnus Carlsen save this position, you can't take the rook because c1 promotion. Not only does he save this position, he wins. He wins the game. And the semifinals of the first Esports World Cup qualification event are Magnus Carlsen versus Arjun Erigaisi, who plays for Gen G, and Hikaru Nakamura versus Alireza Firouzja. So we have multiple of the signing teams represented in the Esports World Cup, which is very, very exciting. And that's going to conclude today. And then tomorrow we have the final, and then we might have the losers bracket final as well. So big news, big money in the chess world. And if chess is here to stay in the Esports World Cup, means top players will be competing for money that they've never seen before. Most of them. Magnus and Hikaru and, you know, those guys, yeah, but other guys, no. And so that's super fun. That's all I have for you today. Get out of here.